Imagine standing in the blazing heat of the Egyptian desert, like 4,500 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay, setting the scene early.
Yeah. So you are looking at 2 million blocks of stone, and some of these weigh over 80 tons.
Right.
You have no heavy machinery, no walkie-talkies, no, project management software on an iPad. Yet somehow, you need to coordinate scores of workers, perfectly sequence the delivery of materials, ensure the entire workforce is fed, housed, and working toward a single goal.
Without the whole thing just collapsing into an absolute riot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without a riot. And what you are doing in that exact moment is executing a survival mechanism that sits at the very core of human civilization. You are managing.
You really are.
Welcome to today's deep dive. Today we are pulling from a foundational university curriculum text on management functions and organizational processes. And our mission here is to extract the absolute core essence of how things actually get done.
Great, tracing this kind of invisible engine.
Yeah, from ancient civilizations all the way to modern multinational corporate boardrooms. We want to give you, the listener, the ultimate shortcut to understanding the mechanics of organizational power.
Because, I mean, the sheer scale of those ancient operations is staggering when you strip away the mythology and just look at the raw logistics.
It's not it.
The source text actually points out that both the Egyptian pyramids and the Indus Valley civilization relied on highly sophisticated management techniques.
Yeah, they had to.
Right. They were implementing complex urban planning, underground drainage systems, and standardized weights and measures. You don't achieve that level of societal integration by accident. It requires a deliberate system of coordinating human effort.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because I think this fundamentally changes how we view the corporate world.
How so?
Well, there is this tendency to view management as a sterile modern invention, right? Like it was cooked up by guys in gray flannel suits in the 1950s.
Oh, yeah, the whole Mad Men era idea of management.
Exactly. But if you look at an ancient Indus Valley planner and a modern IT project manager, they are essentially doing the exact same thing.
They really are.
They are both trying to integrate individual, sometimes totally chaotic efforts into a unified group activity to hit a specific objective. I mean, sure, the tools have evolved from clay tablets to cloud computing, but the underlying human challenge of preventing total chaos, that is identical.
Which is why defining that exact human challenge has been the obsession of theorists for decades.
Right.
Watching how experts have tried to pin down a definition of management actually reveals a fascinating evolution in, well, what we value as a society. Take F.W. Taylor, for example.
Oh, the efficiency guy.
Yep. His definition is a total product of the industrial age. He viewed management as the art of knowing what you want to do in the best and cheapest way.
Oof. Best and cheapest.
Right. It is a hyper-efficient, almost mechanical view of human labor.
Yeah, that strips all the humanity right out of it.
Yeah.
It basically treats people as gears in a machine where the only metrics that matter are speed and cost.
It does. But then you see the pendulum swing back toward the human element with Mary Parker Follett.
Okay.
She defined management beautifully as the art of getting things done through the efforts of others.
Well, I like that a lot better.
It shifts the focus entirely away from the machinery and places it squarely on the interpersonal dynamics. And then later on, Harold Kuntz and O'Donnell kind of synthesize those two extremes.
Right. The text talks about them arguing that management is the process of getting things done through organized group efforts.
Exactly.
And the text highlights a really clever linguistic breakdown they use to emphasize that synthesis. They separate the word management itself into manage, men, and T.
Manage men tactfully.
Yes, manage men tactfully. It acknowledges the operational side, the managing part, but it anchors it completely in human empathy and tact.
And that requirement for tact brings up one of the most intense, long-running debates in the source material.
Oh, the big debate.
Yeah. Because if management requires navigating complex human emotions tactfully, while simultaneously trying to optimize processes for the best and cheapest outcome, what kind of discipline is it?
Right.
Is it a hard science governed by immutable laws, or is it an intuitive art form?
See, I have to push back hard on the idea of management ever being a true science.
Really?
Because physics is a science. If I drop an apple from a roof, gravity pulls it down at the same rate every single time.
Mm-hmm.
But human beings are inherently unpredictable.
That's true.
A strategy that totally motivates an employee on a Tuesday might make them quit on a Thursday just because they slept poorly. I mean, how can anyone argue that managing that level of volatility is a science?
Well, the proponents of the science label, particularly thinkers like Luther Gulick and that F.W. Taylor guy we mentioned, they built their argument on the existence of a systematic body of knowledge.
Okay.
Science doesn't just mean absolute predictability, right? It means establishing cause and effect relationships through observation. Gulick argued that business interrelationships can be systematically explained with emerging theories.
Theories that are tested and proven.
Exactly. Improved by logic and facts over time. I mean, Taylor literally conducted stopwatch experiments on the shop floor, observing human movements to deduce universally applicable principles of efficiency.
But the text itself adds a massive caveat to that, categorizing it as an inexact science.
Right, inexact.
It concedes that because human behavior is the primary variable, you can never achieve the exactness of chemistry or physics, which is why I look at management much more like cooking.
Oh, cooking. Okay, go on.
Yeah, so science gives you the foundation. It explains the chemical reactions of baking or the precise temperature an oven needs to be. But the art of cooking is knowing when to deviate from the recipe.
Ah, I see.
It is adding a pinch of salt based on tasting the sauce in the moment because, the tomatoes you bought today are slightly more acidic than the ones you bought yesterday.
That analogy perfectly captures George Terry's argument in the text.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Terry firmly places management in the realm of art. For him, the discipline relies on intuition, judgment, and the continuous creative application of skills.
So it's about the creative application.
Exactly. A manager takes those baseline scientific theories and applies them creatively to solve completely novel problems. The innovation we see in great leaders isn't born from following a formula. It's proof of their mastery of an art form developed through, deliberate practice and experience.
So we have this fluid blend going on, an inexact science forming the base and creative art driving the execution.
Yep.
But the text introduces a third category that attempts to formalize both. It asks whether management has evolved into a true profession.
And to answer that, the source relies on criteria established by Edgar Schein.
Right.
For any discipline to be classified as a profession like law or medicine, for instance, it requires a codified body of knowledge, a long period of formal education, specific entry criteria, a rigorous code of ethics, and an overarching professional body.
And we are definitely seeing that infrastructure solidify globally. I mean, we have massive business schools churning out standardized curricula and the accreditation agencies monitoring that education.
Absolutely.
The text specifically highlights how this is playing out in India, pointing to the Association of Indian Management Schools, or AIMS, regulating the academic side.
And the All India Management Association, or AMA, uniting practicing managers?
Right. They're actively building the walls that elevate management to the status of a recognized profession.
They are.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because management has always been this blurry intersection of science, art, and emerging profession, early theorists suffered a massive identity crisis.
They really did.
They couldn't even agree on what to call the people sitting in the corner offices. It sparked a fierce linguistic turf war over two words: administration versus management.
It was a monumental clash of perspectives, and it was primarily split across the Atlantic.
The British versus the Americans.
Exactly. So the British school of thought planted their flag on the idea that management is the supreme overarching concept.
Okay.
In their model, management is the brain of the organization. It handles long-term objectives, policy formulation, and rulemaking at the absolute highest level.
Meaning administration is relegated to the grunt work.
Pretty much.
In the British view, the administrators are just the hands carrying out the operational tasks to solve immediate problems on the ground.
Yeah.
They're entirely subservient to the managers.
But then you have the American school,
Right?
led by thinkers like Orway Ted and William Spriegel, and they flipped that hierarchy completely upside down.
Of course they did.
They argued that administration is the superior thinking function. Administrators are the visionaries who formulate the policy. Management, in the American view, is merely the implementing or doing function.
So the managers are the ones sweating on the factory floor, simply executing the day-to-day operations dreamed up by the administrator. The irony here is just rich. You have these top-tier intellectuals writing dense, impassioned papers, fighting for years over which title confers more prestige.
Right.
But modern thinkers featured in the text, like Keith Davis and Harold Kuntz, they look back at this transatlantic debate and essentially call it a massive waste of energy.
A total semantic distraction.
Yeah. They argue it is purely semantic.
Davis makes the very pragmatic point that the actual internal process is identical regardless of the label. And Coase goes even further, stating that making any distinction between the two words is highly misleading.
It doesn't matter what's on your business card.
Exactly. If you are an administrator running a hospital or a manager running a tech startup, the daily mechanical requirements of your job, the specific levers you have to pull to keep the organization functioning, are exactly the same.
Which moves us perfectly from the theoretical debates into the mechanical reality.
Yes. Let's get into the mechanics.
If we strip away the semantic arguments over titles, what is the core engine of this profession? When a manager sits down at their desk on a Monday morning, what are the actual gears they are turning to prevent that descent into chaos?
Well, early theorists loved an acronym to explain this.
Well, don't they always?
Luther Gulick gave us POSD CRIM.
Wait, POSD CRIM, that is a mouthful.
It is. It stands for planning, organizing, staffing, directing, coordinating, reporting, and budgeting.
That's a lot of ings.
Yeah. And then Henry Fayol countered with POCCC. Planning, organizing, coordinating, controlling, commanding.
Okay, also a bit clunky.
Right. But modern curriculum, relying heavily on Kuntz and O'Donnell, distills all of this complexity into 5 interconnected primary functions.
The big 5. These 5 functions are the absolute bedrock of the source material. So let's explore the mechanics of each one, starting with planning. Now, this isn't just like making a to-do list for the week, right?
Far from it. Planning is the organizational bridge between the present reality and a desired future state. It is a highly analytical function where a manager has to evaluate external factors, like shifting economic trends or sudden technological leaps against internal factors, like the company's financial runway and intellectual capital. You are literally plotting a trajectory through a hostile environment.
And once that trajectory is set, you move to the second function, organizing.
Right.
If planning is plotting the course, organizing is building the vehicle. It is the structural framework. You are defining the lines of authority, allocating specific tasks, and delegating responsibility so that different departments don't end up, duplicating work or working against each other.
But a structural framework is useless without muscle to move it.
True.
Which leads directly to the third function, staffing.
Getting the right people.
And this goes so much deeper than simply hiring bodies to fill seats. It involves rigorous job analysis, strategic recruiting, and crucially, continuous training and retention efforts. You are trying to maintain a workforce that possesses both the technical skills to execute the plan and the cultural attitude to thrive within the organization.
And if your staffing function fails, the fourth function, directing, becomes a total nightmare.
Oh, absolutely.
Directing is the nervous system of the organization. It encompasses leadership and motivation, but the text places a massive emphasis on communication here.
Communication is the lifeblood of directing. The text notes that organizational history is littered with catastrophic failures that stem purely from communication breakdowns.
Just people not talking to each other.
Exactly. A manager can build a brilliant plan and hire the best people, but if they cannot clearly articulate the vision and motivate individuals to act on it, the entire structure paralyzes. Directing ensures the workforce actually understands the mandate.
And then you reach the fifth function, controlling.
Yes, controlling.
And this is a term that suffers from a terrible PR problem.
It really does.
When most people hear controlling in a management context, they envision a toxic boss breathing down their neck, micromanaging every single coffee break.
Right, but the mechanism described in the text is entirely different.
So what is it really?
The misconception is that controlling is about restricting human freedom. In management theory, controlling is strictly about course correction.
Okay, course correction.
Think of it as the organization's internal GPS. You set your destination during the planning phase. Controlling is the mechanism that constantly measures your actual progress against the intended route.
Oh, I see.
It involves auditing records, checking budgets, and evaluating performance metrics. If a project starts bleeding money or a department misses a critical milestone, the controlling function flags the deviation.
It recalibrates the route. It isn't about punishing the driver. It is about keeping the car out of the ditch.
Exactly.
So you cannot control if you haven't planned, and your directing falls apart if you haven't organized. The 5 functions are completely symbiotic.
They are. But, the true test of a manager isn't understanding these 5 functions in a sterile classroom setting.
Right, because the real world is messy.
Very. The text pivots to the modern challenges that act as a blender for these functions. Managers are trying to plan, organize, and direct in an environment that is shifting under their feet daily, driven primarily by globalization and technology.
So what does this all mean for the manager on the ground?
Well, the source material uses the Tata Consultancy Services, or TCS, as a prime example.
Okay.
Here is a company rooted in India, but they are managing operations across the entire globe simultaneously, relying on information and communication technology to keep those five functions intact across time zones.
And it creates a deeply complex web. I
Yeah.
mean, the text points out how multinational corporations like GE, Microsoft, IBM, and Google are fundamentally dependent on talent hired outside the United States.
Right. Globalization allows a manager to acquire the best staffing globally.
But it introduces massive cultural and logistical friction into the directing and organizing functions.
Absolutely. And the technological infrastructure isn't evenly distributed either.
Yeah, that's a huge point.
The text highlights a stark contrast. You have global executives demanding seamless cloud integration, but a local manager in a developing nation might be trying to execute that exact same plan while battling low internet penetration in rural areas or dealing with a workforce that lacks basic computer literacy.
You really see this friction in the auto industry example provided in the text.
Oh yeah, the Honda and Hyundai example.
Yeah. Global giants like Honda and Hyundai operate on standardized, worldwide management principles. But when they enter a market like India, they are suddenly competing with local powerhouses like Tata Motors.
Right.
And Tata Motors is engineering vehicles specifically adapted for localized road conditions and regional consumer habits. The modern manager has to synthesize global efficiency with hyperlocal reality.
Add to that the sheer unpredictability of human demographics. The text identifies diversity as one of the most critical hurdles for the directing function.
There's a brilliant quote from a vice president at PepsiCo in the source material about this.
Oh, I love this quote.
They state, "Diversity is no longer about counting heads. It is about making heads count."
That is a profound evolution in staffing and directing. Modern managers aren't just checking demographic boxes anymore. They are tasked with synthesizing completely different worldviews into a cohesive strategy.
Right.
You have managers trying to organize teams where highly experienced seniors are suddenly taking direction from very young, digitally native executives.
Which can cause some tension.
Definitely. The text explicitly mentions the growing reliance on diversity audits to ensure that this clash of perspectives actually generates innovative momentum rather than internal friction.
Because that innovative momentum is the only way to survive the final challenge outlined in the text, the relentless consumer demand for quality and innovation.
Consumer preferences are evolving at breakneck speed.
Oh, absolutely. The text uses Reliance Industries as a perfect case study. They began as a textile manufacturer. If their management had just rigidly stuck to planning and organizing textiles, they would be a footnote today.
But they didn't.
No. Instead, they adapted their functions to expand into retail, petrochemicals, and they completely revolutionized digital communication with JIO.
They listened to the shifting environment. You see the exact same mechanism in the food industry example the text provides, where consumer demand is aggressively pivoting away from chemically treated or frozen foods toward organic alternatives.
Right.
If the controlling function in an organization isn't constantly auditing those shifting external demands, the entire company becomes obsolete.
The modern manager is performing an incredible high-wire act. I mean, you are sitting at your desk trying to adhere to strict global ethics while cutting costs to compete internationally, fostering a culture of rapid innovation, directing a multi-generational workforce, and trying to execute a master plan while your rural server keeps timing out.
It demands an incredible mastery of both the inexact science and the intuitive art we discussed earlier.
It really is a monumental undertaking. Which brings us to the end of today's deep dive. I want to thank you, the listener, for unpacking this foundational text with us.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. We have traced the DNA of management, from the meticulous urban planning of the Indus Valley to the global boardrooms of modern tech giants. And the greatest takeaway is that whether you are organizing a multinational rollout for a new telecommunications network, or you are just trying to coordinate a messy community fundraiser in your neighborhood, the underlying engine does not change.
Not at all.
You are planning the route, organizing the structure, staffing the right people, directing the communication, and controlling for the inevitable deviations.
The tools will continue to evolve, absolutely, but those 5 core functions remain the universal blueprint for getting things done.
But I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder as you look at your own daily routines and the organizations you interact with. We spent a lot of time debating the tension between management as an inexact science and an intuitive art. Right now, artificial intelligence and data analytics are advancing at a terrifying speed. Algorithms are increasingly taking over the science of management. Software can optimize a supply chain perfectly, track budgets down to the cent, and measure performance targets without a hint of human error.
It's getting wild.
So, if the technology eventually handles all the math, all the budgeting, and all the tracking, will the future of management rely entirely on the art side? As the rigid science gets outsourced to machines, will your true, irreplaceable value as a manager lie exclusively in your tact? The algorithms might generate the absolute perfect plan for the best and cheapest way, but perhaps it will always require a human being to look at a chaotic, diverse, and unpredictable team and know exactly when to throw out the recipe and add that pinch of salt.